Welcome to the Let's Talk podcast. We talk a lot about employer branding, EVPs, careers pages, recruitment campaigns, social media. But I think sometimes we forget where an employer brand actually starts. It starts with the business, the decisions leaders make, how they grow, how they deal with pressure, how they treat customers, how they recognize success, and how they handle the difficult days. Because I'll tell you what, people are watching. Employees are watching, candidates are watching. And over time, those decisions become the stories people tell about an organization. Today, I'm joined by someone who has spent more than 13 years working across sales, marketing, retail, agri-tech, and B2B commerce. Akash Mitra is the Chief Business Officer at KSKT AgroMart. He's been part of building businesses from the ground up, including as a founding team member at Bija, where the business scaled from zero to more than 1,000 crores in annual business. He's also an author, a TEDx speaker, and has been recognized by Forbes. He's written 2 books, including Stop Selling, Start Solving, and Karma of Commerce, which looks at the decisions businesses make and the consequences that eventually come back to them. But if you look at how Akash describes himself, the job title is only one part of the story. He's a rainmaker, he's a builder, and he's also chief dad. I suspect that last one might be the most demanding leadership of all. Akash, welcome to the Let's Talk podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I always say this, the pleasure is all mine, but don't get too comfortable because the bride is going to get a bit bumpy. Now, I would really like to understand this. When we say rainmaker, you've led and built businesses at very different stages. What has leadership taught you about people that no business school ever could?
Well, to be very honest, how do I explain? Though I have, did my post-graduation from UK, from Robert Gordon University, what it taught me basically was optimizing systems. The emotion part of it didn't really click in the textbooks. So I'm not knocking business schools, but it gave the framework, right? The framework which I still use. It taught me to optimize systems, but it didn't teach me to optimize, people, to be very honest. And their stories have P&L attached to it. So that is a very important part, I think, to it.
Has that made you change the way you lead different people?
Of course, in certain times, of course, yes. And mostly it is yes. But there are certain times which I still feel that when you are on a hyper growth model, mostly in startups, you tend to feel that the numbers are your result. That is the score sheet, that's a mark sheet. But people actually judge you. Sometimes I try to, think about it. And I feel that mostly leaders, founders, CXOs, VPs, they often feel that they're, on a stage,
Mm,
on a spotlight, but it is actually not right. They're
true.
actually in a glass house where people are judging you always and every time. So it is not all treating people good when the business is good is the easiest thing possible.
Yeah.
How you treat them, how you talk to them, how much credit you are passing on when the business is not, you're having a bad month, bad deal, you know, certain circumstances happen which is beyond our control. And that is how you react, and you stop responding and you start reacting. And that is how, people start judging you. So so when I think of all these things, I try to keep a check on myself. How do I talk to people? What they might be feeling? So there have been a lot of instances over the years. Yeah.
It's nice to hear that, and my heart goes out to every leader as well, because I know what you said is so true that leaders are always judged. Leaders are constantly living in glass houses. Completely resonate with that. When was the first time you realized that people weren't just watching the business you were building, they were watching the way you were building it?
So this one sits with me for really deep. So during a scale up, I restructured a lot of teams. I restructured the sales team, which matched their growth. that was heading, collapsed some overlapping roles, redrew territories, moved good people out of patches they owned for years. On a model, it was very clean, a better covers to serve, faster route to profitability as well. Every number agreed with me, but the model didn't price it with some of the overlapping roles. They were actually people who had built those relationships over the years from nothing. And to them, reshuffle didn't actually read as efficiency. It read as a thing that I built for no longer mattered to my seniors anymore, to my management anymore. I had gotten the structure right, to be very honest. But the human landing went terribly wrong
Hmm.
because they rolled out a clean organizational change instead of a hard conversation. So the lesson wasn't about the decision that was wrong. It was not that. It was right. But the lesson was the right on paper and right on people are completely two separate calculations.
Hmm.
And back then, when I only ran the first one, so many things have again intertwined and, how it works completely changed.
So, did it change the way you made decisions after that?
Of course, yes. I'll tell you, it is not about optimization or being soft or something like that. People are actually willing to take the truth, the hard truth. They can listen to the hard truth if you have facts backing it up, not your, emotions or something like that. Okay, I don't feel like this is not going to work, so let's shut it. So it doesn't work that way. So you have to convey that these are, it's all about dollar and cents, right? So if you convey it correctly, people are accepting. Even I am an employee. I have been at a junior level. Even I have faced certain hard stuff in my career, and as my bosses or my seniors have given a very clear path. Ki this is how it is. It is not right. This is how it is going to be, and I have accepted it.
It's nice to hear from someone on the other side of the spectrum because, as an employer branding person, and even though I lead the business, I think I'm far more emotional and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. But it's very interesting to see most leaders tend to talk dollars and cents, just like you. But I have a quick question. Do you think the way a business grows, and especially when we're talking about the pressure of growth, right?
Yeah.
Since you were mentioning about scaling, and that's something that resonated with you. Do you think the way a business grows can sometimes be as important as how quickly it grows?
So fast is not right always. What I think in my earlier days, in my earlier career, I used to feel that the faster you grow without analyzing what is going on, that's so basically speed is what I thought is going to, and I got promotions for that also, to be very honest. So I can give you an example. So, when I was working with Wingreens, one of the fastest growing, and it is still a startup currently, but in my earlier days when I was working with Wingreens, there were certain reconciliations required in a business spectrum kind of a thing, which required around 45 days or 60 days, which I cut down to 7 days. I got so much recognition for that. This guy has done that and all. And that got to me, to be very honest. And that led to me to solving and all every little small little details and why it is taking so much time. Let's do it faster. Fast is the mantra in startup, to be very honest. Everywhere, every time you will hear that this is not a government organization and there is no such big bureaucracy. So many of approval mechanism is not present like a very large organization. It is always have to be fast, fast, fast. But what I feel is with all this mindset that I had back then, that I started expecting the same from my teams, and not everyone is going to deliver speed, but precision is much more important than speed. That is what I realized.
You mentioned that in that previous model, the example that you were giving me, you said
Yeah.
that it all looked right on paper, but it didn't feel right for the people and for the legacy that it came
Yeah.
with. But when you realized what you realized, what did you do?
See, you mean the first part of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I'm
So
sure realization came through, and like I don't think people are embracing it with open arms.
see, it is about being a little bit of compassion. So I'll give you an example. So one of my seniors had, we were having a management kind of a ज्ञान session. ठीक है.
Yeah.
It was a training session for how what future managers are going to be and what kind of questions comes up and all this kind of stuff. So we were all sitting the trainer or the brand trainer who had come. He asked us a very different question. He asked us ki, when you call your sales team or your business team, what do you ask? What is the first thing that you tell them? So most of the guys, they said ki, we asked them, where are you? What are you doing? Why this number is not done? And so on and so on. So he told us to be, see, I know you guys are men, but you have to act like mothers. You have to act like mom. First ask them, have you eaten? What is your mom normally calls you and tells you is the first thing that have you eaten? So if you do that, that is the basically emotion connect that you create with that person. He looks up to you. That person is looking up to you. And the first question that you, if you being little bit of compassionate, you ask him that, is it a good time to talk to you? Of course, you have the pause. You can call them and you can talk to them. But if you ask them that, take the permission that, is it okay to talk to you right now? Have you eaten? So that develops. So that kind of compassion is what requires. So when we understood that, these hard calls that we had made, and people were not actually happy with it. So it is like a town hall kind of a thing. They come up, they don't talk about your numbers, they talk about your feelings. That is very important.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go on, go on.
So in a town hall, if you see, most of the people, they don't talk about numbers. It's all about qualitative discussion. It is not always quantitative discussions. And they tell you that this is something which we don't like. The way you conduct such meetings are not right. The way you spoke with me is not right. Within each other. So if you if you sit with them, you tell them, Mm, see, these are the things which are not aligning. And you show them on a presentation or, you talk to them just heart to heart. And you tell them this is just not working out. What is that you think is going to happen right now? So eventually they are going to say, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. What can you do?
Mm.
Because there are so many moving parts to it. And, it's just like that.
And completely agree. And I'm so glad you've explained the whole compassion bit. I'm actually going to take that away with me as a learning. Yes, I feel that leaders are constantly being watched and watched very closely.
Yeah.
And, living in a glass house, exactly how we started talking.
Yeah.
Do leaders underestimate how closely employees watch the decisions they make?
I think most leaders underestimate it.
And what do you think they're watching most closely? So what is it that the leaders should be looking at?
See, when creating a brand image or about the company, about the organization, it isn't, it starts within the organization. It
Correct.
doesn't start outside. The marketing, the HR campaigns, and all those kind of stuff are just the mm, first part of it. The main part happens within. I don't want to name companies, but I know I can tell you so many companies which look so lucrative to work with. They have good places to work tag on them and so many stuff. But I know people who are working there are absolutely not happy at all
Yeah.
with the way the environment is. And
Yeah.
environment doesn't happen, culture doesn't happen create on a SOP on a piece of paper. It is created in meetings, in sessions, in emails, in conversations. It happens, it is like an organism rather than a machine. Company, if I have to explain, traditionally we call it a machine. There are moving parts and all of that stuff. But it is actually, it is just like a human being. It's like a animal. So if some part is not moving, like a car or something like that, you shut the car, you take that part out of it, and then you replace it, and it starts again. But company doesn't work that way.
Hmm.
You can't shut a company to fix a problem. It keeps on while you change it, just like a human body. You get a surgery done, but you're still alive. You're not shutting yourself up. So what I feel is, the leaders, when they are talking to their team, communicating to their team, it is about how you uh, give credit, take credit, because that is very, very important. RNR session is the last thing I'm talking about. I'm talking about a day to day stuff. I'm talking about how you are communicating. On good days, it's the easiest thing for a leader or a manager to deal with their team. But on a bad day, if a CRM team, if a customer support team has not communicated with a agitated customer well, and the customer came up and wrote so many bad stuff on Google review or Meta or somewhere, and now how you are going to talk to that person is extremely important, because you're not dealing with one individual, you're dealing with so many individuals who are all making somewhat mistakes, including yourself, right? So how you deal with them is the most important part, and people tend to forget that. People feel that uh, at during reviews I will give proper reviews, we will discuss, then along with the HR sitting in, we'll give proper appraisals, they'll be happy. I don't think that is the case.
So, is that why what leaders do often matters more than what they say?
Yeah, I think that is what it is.
But then, why do sometimes leaders behave surprised by the reaction they get from employees? Because leaders already always know what's going around, right? And then suddenly they're all very surprised.
So I'll tell you I'll tell you a story. So what happens was,
Enough stories.
so there is a lesson that I remember, and it didn't most come out from a win, right? Uh, it's not from any winning situation or some cake cutting ceremony. It came from someone leaving the organization. So years into scaling in my previous organization into fresh produce businesses. So one of my strong performers resigned, and on the way out, I asked him straight, "Okay, why you're leaving?" Of course, we had multiple discussions earlier, but still, I wanted to just out of curiosity ask him because he didn't give me a straight answer back then. So I asked him why. So I was expecting a better offer, kind of a statement from him. But instead, he talked about a decision I had made months earlier, a call I'd completely forgotten, a moment where I backed a number over the person under pressure, because quarter end, year end stuff goes on. He remembered it exactly, while I completely forgot about it, and that landed hard. I was busy building revenue 10 million over 124 million in a year, and I assumed that people were judging me on the results, but they weren't. They were actually quietly filling away their small moments. How
Hmm.
handled the bad week, which I was talking about, for any leader, who got the credit, where I stayed consistent when pressure spiked. The numbers are always the headlines for a leader. The behavior, the story they tell each other, it is always about the behavior. Ki my boss said this and that happened and this and that. So that is, I think, the most crucial part.
Do you think people forgive a bad decision more easily if they believe the leader is consistent? I mean, in this case, I understand that the person left, but
Yeah, I don't know how to answer this, to be very honest, because mm, see, it is about individual to individual, but overall, if you see, it depends on the leader as well. Is it, if that instance, what he remembers you for, is for forgivable, because not for you've been too hard on yourself and you are chasing your own agenda or your own drive rather than the overall team drive. uh, because most of the leaders, to be very honest, in the industry, if you feel, they are all there for their own self branding. That is the hard truth, right? They want to scale up the ladder. Of course, they're a team player, and they always. I am assuming that they always give credit to their team, because that is a way to scale up the ladder as well, which is a really hard truth. But not always you give credit to the right people. There are certain times you fail to do that, and sometimes you take credit for yourself, that you told them to do this and they did that, while the actual ideation was from your team itself. So it happens not from a junior manager level or a senior manager level. It goes up to the CEO or even the board of directors as well. It goes all the way, and that is how the brand loyalty amongst your team is being created.
true, true. Because I think loyalty comes from a factor is that do you give people their due credit and you don't steal their credibility from them? And
Yes.
even if it means it is the smallest input that has come from someone else,
Yeah.
having acknowledging that I,
Yes.
is really, really important from a credibility point of view.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to do a very quick experiment with you. If I asked 10
Yeah.
employees what their company really stands for? What do you hope they would say? And what do you think they would actually say?
For
Let's
my
start
current,
with what they would say. If
yeah,
I
okay.
ask, I'm not talking about your
S-
company, I'm just
ne-
talking about
Okay,
generically. If somebody was to ask,
great. So, see, I feel if I have to ask 10 employees what they will talk about me or about the organization, that's what you're talking about, right? Great.
correct, what do you hope they would say?
I hope they all have 10 different opinions, to be very honest. If they all start speaking the same, just
And
like a
then,
brochure line, then there is something fishy about it.
correct.
They all should say something different. And what I hope is, for example, if I am the manager and I CBO that is working in the company and all these 10 employees, they should tell that the overall crux should be that we are not just selling, but we are solving something. That is the agenda. They should actually get convinced that actually we are solving some problem, rather than just, you know, one of the companies in the market, in the industry, that is also doing this or also doing that. They should identify themselves ki we are doing something different, and we actually, by that, we are going to solve a major, we are going to contribute something to the society in terms of solving these.
So then coming back to the second part of the question is what do you think they will actually say?
I have no idea, to be very honest. I have no idea. I hope that they say what I spoke in the first part.
See, I think in every organization, there's a definite gap, right? Because
Yeah,
organizations feel that, this is what our employees are going to say
yeah,
or should be saying about us.
yeah.
And then, there's a very different aspect being spoken. And you'll see that gap in your Glassdoor reviews, your Ambition box, and, your
Yes.
Google reviews. And those gaps are very, very obvious. But why do you think that gap exists? How do you think leaders can be that conduit between what companies should say and what is being said?
So this is a very right question at a right time. See, if you see in around the world and across majority of the industries that there are, and all the recent recruitments that every industry, every company is happening, mostly it is Gen Zs.
Mm.
And my experience with Gen Zs is slightly, I mean, like, obvious that they are very outspoken. They don't care. And to deal with them, for a person, not of maybe of my age, but a senior person than me, adapting to that might get difficult for him. So, for example, in my last few organizations, including the one where I'm working currently, we have time to time monthly, town hall sessions, open dialogue sessions, where they speak freely and they speak anything and they don't hesitate at all. And that is actually the place to actually review yourself, because of course there are annual reviews and we have KRA and KPIs, but KRA KPIs doesn't always have, as business leaders, have to do with how your team is feeling about you. It is not there. It is only mostly quantitative. So when we are having such town hall sessions or open dialogue sessions and whatever they are speaking about, if you don't resolve that, if you don't act on it, and if you don't control and check on yourself, it is most likely some bad reviews are going to come very soon on Glassdoor or Ambition Box, and some attritions are going to happen very soon, because there are so many job openings and job creations are happening in a fastest growing economy like India and so many other economies in the world. And you can't take anyone for granted. If you think that he'll stay and all these things, but it doesn't work that way at all. You have to hear them out. That is, I think, the most important part.
And from a reviews point of view, I'd want to understand from your sense if your customers described your business one way, but your employees described it in another, which version would you believe?
Of course, the employees. I'll pick my employees any day. I'll tell you why.
Yeah, yeah, I'm going to ask you why.
I'll tell you why. So it is about performance, right? Business is always about a performance. So what the customer sees and feels about the company is the performance that they are looking at. What goes behind the rehearsals, the backstage stuff, that is the actual grinding that happens. So I'll choose my employees any day over my customers.
So, what leaves a bigger mark on how things are running around in the company from an employer brand perspective, right? The way a company celebrates success, you think, or the way it handles difficult days? How
Difficult days.
the
Difficult days.
culture and
Difficult. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it is always difficult days because see, I've worked in organizations where we had 10 or 12 cake cutting birthday celebrations in a day.
Yeah.
Right. People actually get agitated with that, to be very honest. Thinking, how many cakes am I supposed to eat every day?
Correct.
So that is one thing. But on a difficult day, how your manager handles you, he sits with you, empathizes with you, shoulder to shoulder, he's moving along with you. That is most important for you because you're looking up to him and to the entire management. You're looking up to them from a junior employee or a fresher who has just started off. We have to be very compassionate. So many of the cases I've seen in my career that a new joinee who has joined the organization, maybe it is his first job, and we don't acknowledge that. I still remember my first day, by the way. And I'm sure that you do yourself as well.
Correct.
We don't forget our first days,
Yes.
our first companies, and that he will keep it for the rest of his life. How I behave, I will be remembered for a first employee that is joining for the first time in a company. He will remember me, but he will forget so many other managers who he might be working with in his career, but he will always remember me.
Always.
Yeah. So so that I have to understand, and I have to also understand very importantly as a leader that a person who's working in my team, that this is not going to be his last company, by the way. He is going to go to another company, and there also he will have his bosses, and he will compare me with them. So even if he's not there in the organization, there is still a competition which I have to fight. So I
Correct.
have to outperform his future boss.
No, that's true. I just put out a very short snippet of a previous podcast that I did, and I put it out on my LinkedIn yesterday, saying that people forget their managers, but they will never forget their mentor who
Yes,
taught them the first thing or the second thing that they kind of understand, right?
absolutely agree.
Which makes me ask this question to you. And from a business perspective, I want to understand is that why do leaders not see the importance of employer branding? Why do they think that this is all about culture and this is not going to give money? So why do they not see the importance? What would be your advice to them?
See, I don't know the right answer for this. Leaders often feel it is the abundance of resources, human resources that they have, and they don't need to bother about it. Might
Mm,
be that is the case, what I feel. But I think that is absolutely wrong. You mentioned about your previous podcast about the mental part of it. So I'll tell you my first boss who had told me something. So, of course, it was my first job and I was taking everything to the heart. If something goes wrong, I used to take it personally. And I was working late hours and such and such. And so my boss came up to me and told me, why are you doing this to yourself? I know numbers are important and I have asked you to get those numbers and do this job, but you're taking it too seriously. What happens if you just go out right out after working hours and five guy come, and they mob you? They take out a knife, a gun, or something like that. What will you say? That I have, please leave me. I have to go home. I have to complete this presentation and I have to send it to my boss. Will that be your answer? I said, no, I'll tell that I have my parents and their, you know, only son, please leave me or something like that. So he said, that is your priority. The job you're doing is to support your priority. This is not your priority. You be good at your job and you support your priorities. So that has always stayed with me. I think this conversation had happened like 13, 14 years back and still stays with me. And so why I told you this story is it is about that same branding thing that you're talking about because he definitely didn't only touch me on that part. He must have spoken to so many other guys and everyone gave above 100%
mm,
to whatever he was asking for. And even if he was asking us to do something which was not even in our KRA KPIs, it was out of the box something. He said, Ki, let's do this experiment. I know this is not going to count on you, on your reviews, but let's do this. We would have done it any which ways. So it always happens like that. But mostly people forget. So I'll mention, cut to your question, in my last book, Karma of Commerce, there is a similar kind of story that, and the overall theme that we have created is what happens in today's startups are when investors are investing, They are not asking you to relax. That days are gone. When someone is putting money on you, they will put you on a treadmill and they will put you on 100 miles per hour speed. You have to run now, right? So they have a target to chase, and that is about profitability. That is our CM1, CM2, CM3, beta pat, all those kind of numbers.
Correct.
And employees, they have to do something else, and founders have to prove something else
Yeah.
to their investors. So there is a difference there. So I think most of the time, this difference creates the gap that you're talking about.
Correct. And you're right. The founder, the investor journey is very different as
Very, very
compared
different.
to the employee journey, which is
Yes.
very different. I do agree that the current founders, the influx of founders, the startup founders that have come in, they're pretty much in tune with, the
Yes.
employee experience and all that stuff.
Absolutely. Yes.
Gone are the days where, the leaders were absolutely not in contact with compassion or with life, because it was very different. It was a different time then. So I do have to give it to the current startup founder leader. Having said that, if you could leave every business leader with one piece of advice about building a company that someone genuinely wants to work for, what would that be?
So it is about compassion, I feel. It is about the harmony that you create within the team. You mentioned about gone are the days when, startup founders or even the company founders were different compared to the new generation or the
Yeah,
present generation founders. See, the option were even less in those days. Talking about my grandfather or your grandfather, maybe. He must have worked in one company in his entire career.
correct.
My father would have worked in, or my father and his generation of people, they might have worked in one or two or maybe three, four companies max in their entire span of work career. That is because in my father's generation, the information started coming in my grandfather's generation. If the boss or the founder used to even slap the employees, they used to still stick with them,
Yeah,
right? Ki yes, Malik ne bola hai, and that is how it used to happen. In our generation and in the Z generation, information is free. You can develop skill, you can develop your knowledge, you can know any company which is hiring, LinkedIn and so many other platforms are there. References are there, referrals are there. So it's very easy for someone to leave you. You have to give 200% as a leader to hold on to that team, because they are extremely, extremely intelligent and they're extremely skillful. If you let go of them, you are wasting your own time, because you will be again hiring someone, training them, and then again spending time looking for the right candidates. You just waste time and money, resources, everything, not just time. So it is better to hold on to them by creating a healthier organization, a healthier environment where they feel that, because see, in even for me, I spend more hours in my office than my home. Right. This is my first home, to be very honest. And most of the employees do that. And it should feel like a home. It should not feel like an office. It should feel that they can, if some mistake that they have done, they can freely communicate that to their managers, and they should back it up, just like people do it in their homes.
yeah,
Okay, if I've done something wrong, I'll talk to my father, I'll talk to my elder brother, and I'll tell him this is what has happened. Tell me
yeah.
what to do. And he will, of course, he will make me realize that this is the mistake that I've done, but he will also guide me that next time I don't make such mistakes.
I think very, very different times. From how boomers to Gen Zs are.
Yes.
Boomers stuck with one job.
Yeah,
Gen Zs, if you're only working with one job, you are actually going to be ostracized by the community
absolutely.
because they don't believe in doing one
Yeah,
job.
yeah,
And so
of course.
leaders need to understand this, that a Gen Z coming into their company is not going to be with them for life.
Yes.
Max 2 years, and then
Yeah,
they're out.
yeah.
And if you would like them to continue for more than 2 years, then you definitely need to meet them level ground, like give them opportunities to do something else, because that's just how the generation is. They don't want to do one thing, they want to do two and three and four things at the same time.
Yes.
Right. So it's a very, very different time. But look, I think it's a good place to end. I like the fact that you described yourself as a chief dad. And I would one last question I'm going to ask you. Has that changed you?
Of course, yes. I used to feel that I had mastered the art of negotiation, which I am not. If my daughter say, you know, she can't speak, she's just 1.5 years old, and even without words, she can persuade a lot of things which I am not willing to do. So, and of course, I've learned compassion. That is the most important part. I now look at people from a different lens than what I used to look. So I think I'm much more compassionate right now.
And you know what? I think that's what we've really been talking about today, compassion, because employer brand starts with compassion. It starts with the decision leaders make every day, how they grow, how they deal with pressure, how they treat people and how they handle success and failure.
Yeah.
And how they behave when things don't go according to plan. Because people are watching. We've said
Yeah.
that leaders live in glass houses.
Glass
And
houses.
eventually, those decisions become stories. And those decisions then become reputation. Hello, Glassdoor, and hello, Ambition Box. And what reputation becomes, that reputation becomes your employer brand.
Yeah.
Anyway, Akash, thank you so much for joining me on the Let's Talk podcast. It's been a really, really good conversation. And to everyone listening, here's something to think about. The next time you make a business decision, ask yourself, what is this decision telling my people about the organization we are building? Because whether you realize it or not, every decision leaves a mark. At Let's Talk, this is the conversation we keep coming back to because we believe employer branding is something you build through the way an organization works, the decision leaders make, and the experiences the employees have. And of course, the reputation that develops over time. We work with organizations and leaders to help them understand, build, and communicate their employer brand in a way that is grounded in the real employee experience. That's what we do at Let's Talk. Thank you again, Akash. Thank you for joining me. And to everyone listening, until next time, let's talk.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me. And it was really, really a good morning for me.
Fantastic.